multiply and divide using scientific notation, including negative exponents. Okay, so first let's just review scientific notation. So remember that scientific notation starts with a number, and this number needs to be between 1 and 10. So it's got to have like a single digit in front of the decimal point. And then we're going to have times 10 to some power. And scientific notation really is a shorthand way for us to write really big or really small numbers. Either way, this is the idea. Okay, so when we multiply them together, you can see we have 6 times 10 to the third times 1 times 3 times 10 to the 8th. We are basically multiplying 4 numbers together. And if you recall, the commutative property of multiplication tells us we can multiply in any order. So I can take my non-base 10 numbers, so 6 times 1.3, and multiply those together. And then I can take my base 10 number, so 10 to the third times 10 to the negative 8th. So let's do that. Let's take 6 times 1.3, and that gives me 7.8. And then when I take 10 to the third times 10 to the negative 8th, remember your exponential rules. We have the same base 10. So when we're multiplying same base, we add the exponents. So this is the same as 10 to the 3 plus negative 8. 3 plus negative 8 is negative 5. So my exponent will be a negative 5. Now, we always want to look at our front number, because if we're playing in scientific notation, you want to end in scientific notation. In this case, 7.8 is between 1 and 10, so we are in scientific notation, and there's my answer, 7.8 times 10 to the negative 5th. Now, when we divide, just kidding, we're going to multiply again. Okay, we'll get to division here in just a second. Okay, so let's do the same thing. 7.2 times 2.5. And you might be saying, why are we doing a second example? Well, notice when we multiply these together, 7.2 times 2.5, I get 18. That right there should send up a red flag for you. Okay, so now I have my base 10 numbers. 10 to the negative 9th times 10 to the negative 7th. Again, same base, we add the exponents. Negative 9 plus negative 7 is negative 16. If you look at this answer, this is not in scientific notation because 18 is bigger than 10. So let's focus on that 18. How do I change 18 to scientific notation? Well, it's bigger than 10, so we know our exponent's going to be positive. So my decimal, right, if you don't see it, your decimal's at the end of the number. So if I move it so that the number becomes between 1 and 10, I have 1.8 times 10 to the, I moved it one place, so my exponent is going to be a 1. And it's going to be a positive 1 because 18 was bigger than 10. All right, I still have times 10 to the negative 16. So now I can move these together. So if we look at our base 10 numbers, again, we're multiplying, so we add the exponents. I have 1 plus negative 16, which is negative 15. So 1.8 times 10 to the negative 15th. So I wanted to do basically an easy example of multiplication, simply meaning it's already in scientific notation when we finish. And then a hard example, which means you have to change it to scientific notation. Now let's divide, same idea. Okay, so if we're dividing 9.4 times 10 to the 4th divided by 2 times 10 to the negative 2nd. First, same idea, play with your non-base 10 numbers. So 9.4 divided by 2 is 4.7. Great. Now let's play with our base 10 numbers. And remember your exponential rules. When I divide the same base, I subtract my exponents. So base 10, always start with your numerator exponent, 4 minus a negative 2. Remember, if we're subtracting a negative, that's the same as adding a positive, right? We add the opposite. So 4 plus 2 gives me 6. So I will end up with 10 to the 6th power. So again, 4.7 is between 1 and 10. 4.7 times 10 to the 6th. Now let's do a harder example. So 6.4 divided by, 6.4 times 10 to the negative 3rd divided by 8 times 10 to the 4th. Again, focus on your non-base 10 numbers. So 6.4 divided by 8 gives me 0.8. Red flag, this is less than 1, so it is not in scientific notation. We'll get to that in a moment. Base 10 numbers. Same base, so I subtract. Negative 3 minus 4. Well, negative 3 minus 4 is a negative 7. So right now I have 0.8 times 10 to the negative 7th. We need to focus on that 0.8. We need to change that to scientific notation. Remember, it's less than 1, so that means my exponent is going to be negative. All right, so I have to move this decimal point to make my number between 1 and 10. So I get 8 times 10 to the negative first. I moved it one place. We are dealing with a small number, so it's a negative 1. And then I still have times 10 to the negative 7th. So when I put my base 10s together, I have 10 to the negative first times 10 to the negative 7th. Multiply same base, so I add the exponents. Negative 1 plus negative 7 gives me an exponent of negative 8. So my final answer in scientific notation, 8 times 10 to the negative 8th.